So one of the things I'm going to talk about now is how to develop a falls hierarchy if you have a fear of falling. Okay, so this is something that I think people really shortcut, is that they don't really spend time thinking about all the little things that worry them about falling, and they just kind of dive straight into falling practice. And, you know, I've said in lots of other videos and posts why I think that's a really bad idea, but I'm going to just talk you through how to develop a proper falls hierarchy now. Okay, so when people think about fear of falling, they think about taking lead falls and practicing taking lead falls, and it kind of often goes something like this. I'll fall from under the bolt. The next time I'll go a bit higher, maybe fall next to the bolt, then I'll go above the bolt and take a nice big fall above the bolt. And that's me done with falling practice. Okay, I want to really significantly rewind that process there. All right, and start with something that most people never really think about. Have you watched any climbing films? Did you watch Free Solo? Did you watch kind of On Site, one of the, or any of the kind of iconic climbing videos? If you've seen one of those films and you found yourself getting really gripped when you know somebody's going to take a fall, you have got a perfect opportunity there to practice managing your anxiety whilst watching somebody fall. Okay, and people might say, well, what's that got to do with me falling? It's got loads to do with you falling. Okay, so if you really find it very stressful when the person you're belaying is about to fall, that is something else that needs to be added into your fears hierarchy. So watching other people fall, whether it's on film or your partner, your climbing partner, or whoever, people around you at the gym, for example, at the climbing wall. So those need to be added into your falling hierarchy. Do you really, really take falls on a top rope? And I think this is where you need to be brutally honest with yourself. Or do you sort of predict that you're not going to do the move and say take? Or do you make a sort of half-hearted attempt? I think you can know that you're doing this if you tend to be very static when you fall on a top rope. So you kind of letting go as opposed to truly falling off. All right. And most people don't even consider that as part of their falling practice. But if you've noticed that actually when I'm seconding, you know, I don't really fully commit to a move to the point where I'm totally don't know if I'm going to fall or not, either because I'm not on anything hard enough on top rope or because I tend to just drop off or, you know, let go myself, then that needs to be added into your falling hierarchy as well. Is it that you perhaps check down that your belayer has you, for example, maybe at the top or maybe just before you do the crux or whatever? Again, there's something in there that should be added into your hierarchy. Can you start to do away with that? Now, often people really dislike me saying that because I think they feel like it's an extra safety check. But I guess my point is your safety check should happen on the floor, because once you start climbing, you need to be fully focused on the climb. And if half of your mind is checking on what your belayer is doing, you're not going to be able to fully commit to the moves in front of you. Okay. And your belayer should be belaying you from the word go, because really anything could happen, you know, a hole could break or spin or whatever, and you could fall at any point. So your belayer should be being vigilant. If they're not, you need to have a word with them when you get down or before you go up the next route. Okay, so checking, that would be something else to add into the hierarchy. Could it be that, you know, when you go multi-pitch trad climbing, for example, and you get to a belay, do you actually sit into your harness and really weight the belay? Or are you someone who kind of like hovers around and takes ages to kind of lower themselves really gently onto the belay? Okay, that's something else to consider. You know, what types of falls are better or worse for you? And again, thinking about maybe top roping or seconding, would you take a fall on a traverse, for example? You know, it's not just necessarily about lead falls, I guess is the point I'm making for a fear of falling. It can be any kind of fall. So what I would just encourage you to do is think about all the things that worry you. Anytime when a fall or there'll be some worry about, am I going to be caught? Is somebody going to kind of get me on the belay? Is this gear going to hold? Did I clip it right? Any of those sorts of worries, and think about all those different scenarios, whether it's falls from the side on a top rope, whether it is leading falls. But I think leading falls is probably like the last thing you should consider. Think about all the other things that maybe go before that. Put each one separately on like a summary card or a post-it or something like that. And then you can shuffle them around to try and figure out, okay, which is the thing I find the most scary here. So moving them around, trying to get them into some kind of order. And then that gives you a kind of a ladder, a way of tackling them. So starting right at the bottom with the thing that you find maybe the least scary and probably the easiest to deal with as well. So the two things thinking about scariness and ease of dealing with it. Start with that one. And that's where you want to be working on that in as a relaxed way as possible. Now, if that is watching a climbing film, that's fine. That's what we call imagined exposure. And that's a really important technique that we use with phobias of any kind. Okay, so it's a valid and useful technique. So sitting there in your climbing stuff, maybe watching on site and trying to stay nice and relaxed in your body, relaxed breathing, and anything that's going to help you to just distance yourself a little bit from your thoughts. So creating that idea of they're just thoughts, it's just sweaty palms, it's just shaking a sort of butterfly stomach, for example. All right. Then you're going to, when you get to the point where you've habituated to that, now that can take a really long time actually, where you get used to feeling quite relaxed whilst you're watching a film and it's not having that big physiological effect on you. That might take quite a number of sessions for some people. It might take quite a long time. That's when when you're almost bored of doing that, that's when you're ready to move on to the next step. So don't move on too quickly. That would be my best advice. So just to summarize, if you're only thinking about taking lead falls in terms of falling practice and trying to overcome a fear of falling, then you've missed a whole load of other things that are probably impacting on your ability to take a fall. And you need to work those into a sort of a falls hierarchy. Okay, hope that makes sense. It's all explained in this book, which is out today. It's called Climb Smarter. It's out with Sequoia Books, and it's got lots of other tips in there for climbers of any level of ability. So I've aimed it squarely at ordinary climbers. You don't have to be, full on hangboard routine to kind of benefit from this book. There's a full section of 7 or 8 chapters on different types of worries and anxieties and how to work with those in climbing, as well as the more common sports psychology tips, but adapted for climbing, such as visualization and focusing and flow and so on. And there's also a section on well-being at the end. So you can find it at Sequoia Books. You can also find it on other online retailers. But yeah, the bit I was just talking about is, I'm trying to find it now. Where did it go? Developing a fear hierarchy. Oh, why does it always close when you want to show somebody what it's doing? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So it just gives you an idea of the range of things you need to consider and weave into your falls hierarchy before you undertake falling practice. Hope that was helpful, and speak soon.